Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, and the Dubs held off the Memphis Grizzlies 121-116, locking up the number 7 seed in the Western Conference playoffs and a first-round matchup against the number 2 seed Houston Rockets. The Grizzlies, who were briefly without star guard Ja Morant due to an apparent ankle injury, play the winner of Wednesday's Dallas Mavericks-Sacramento Kings contest Friday. Draymond, talk to me.
Yeah, he's different. He's different. You can just see a whole different intensity level and focus. And, I'm a basketball fan, so I've watched it on TV for years. To see it up close and personal, it's a real thing. Sometimes you get in the NBA and, these guys come get these nicknames and you're like, man, stop it. There's some other nicknames out there. They're not real. That one's real. And I'm happy he on our side.
Playoff Jimmy, it's a real thing, Stephen A. Did Golden State take it or did Memphis lose it?
Listen, you don't want to take any credit away from the Golden State Warriors. Let me be very, very clear about that. Steph Curry was spectacular, especially late. Jimmy Butler was spectacular. Draymond Green had, I think, double digits in assists, and obviously he was doing what he does defensively. Give the Warriors all the credit in the world, but in the same breath, let's make sure we understand, partially anyway, what happened. Ja Morant did get hurt. And if Ja Morant, considering some of the plays that he was making, had remained healthy throughout, considering the fight that Memphis put forth, which is what we were talking about yesterday, the way they fought these guys, they started off strong, faded a little bit, started off strong again in the third quarter, faded a little bit, but kept coming back, wouldn't go away. You look at Desmond Bane and what he was doing. Jaren Jackson came alive a little bit late. You saw what Ja Morant and how he tried to play through the obvious pain from that ankle, that ankle injury. And then you got to think about the fact that Brandon Clark isn't there, who's a big, big cog for them. I would just look at it from that standpoint, not taking anything away from the Golden State Warriors, but you did find yourself saying, especially in the end, if Ja Morant had not gotten hurt, we might be saying something different this morning.
Well, listen, you don't obviously take any playoff win, and this is sort of a playoff game. You don't take it away. Home court wins these playing games. I'd have to go look at the record. Wendy probably has it. You need to be at home in these playing games. Obviously, Orlando last year, Miami at home a couple years ago, got all the way to the finals, but they got out of it playing with home games. Hard to win the road games in these playing. And Memphis did a good job. They were competitive. As you said, Steve, they were in trouble early, down 12 at the half. Trouble in the third quarter, got back in the game and had a chance to win with a minute to go. So from that standpoint, I give Memphis some credit. They will definitely beat Dallas and Sacramento. They're going to play Oklahoma City in that first round. They're not beating Oklahoma City. And that's a break for OKC. But I think the bigger picture to me is Golden State needed this win because they can beat Houston. And I wasn't with you guys these last 2 days, and I'm sure you brought it up. Matter of fact, I saw it because they had the headlines on it on Monday when I was working. And I do think the fact that Golden State's loss to the Clippers actually helped them on Sunday. I know they wanted to win the game, but I think it helped them because if they won last night, they're the 7 seed. If they had beaten, obviously, the Clippers, they would have been the 5 seed. That means Denver or Houston. I'd much rather play Houston. So I think, in essence, they get 4 days off now. That series doesn't start until about 3 a.m. on Sunday night. That's another story altogether. But from that standpoint, I think Golden State is in a decent shape. Are they going to win the NBA championship? We'll discuss this. But I think Golden State winning, I think from the standpoint of where they sit now with Houston next, that was a good break last night with a good win. Let me hear.
If you're a Grizzlies fan, you're saying, woe is me today because you're saying not again. We have another situation where Ja gets hurt. And absolutely, Stephen A., look, he had 18 points. When he made the basket in the third quarter, that was his 18th point. It's a 1-point game. He comes back, he scores 4 points the rest of the way. Very clearly, it affected him. But the reason that the Grizzlies are in this situation, which is now in a fighting to play Oklahoma City in the first round, is how they've melted down the stretch of this season. They have not beaten any of these Western Conference playoff teams since January 30th, I think was the last time they won a game. 2 months ago, February 16th or even February 20th or whatever, they were the 2 seed. When they fired Taylor Jenkins in mid-March, they were tied for the 4th seed. Yeah. They enter this as the 8th seed. And so now when you watch Desmond Bane, who played brilliantly in this game, have those 3-pointers rattle out, he had 2 of them late in the second half, rattle out, and you see Ja out there playing on the bum ankle, you do say, woe is us. But the Grizzlies reaped what they sowed here with the way they finished this season. This, to me, was a story about the Warriors' dream. The Warriors' dream is the pairing of playoff Jimmy and Steph Curry. These two guys fit together so well because their skill sets enable each other to thrive. And we saw that in this game. Jimmy Butler knows that there was going to be a bunch of pressure to start the game. Steph Curry is out there wearing a modified cast on that thumb. You know it's affecting him. He scores 36 points in the first 3 quarters of this game. Attacking. Stephen A., since the day he got there, you were talking about free throws? 18 free throws. It's not an elimination game, but essentially it is. In a single elimination game, Jimmy Butler gets 18 free throws, and it opens the door for Steph Curry to have the energy in the fourth quarter where he scores 15 points and has the energy to run 3 miles in this game, the most he's run in a game this season because Jimmy Butler shares the load.
A couple of things before we go back to Molly. First 29 games of this year, guys, in a Warriors uniform, Jimmy Butler never shot the ball more than 17 times. Last 2 games, season finale against the Clippers, play-in tournament last night, he took more than 20 shots. And, oh, by the way, he got to the free throw line 27 times. Think about that for a second. As I've repeatedly stated, this is what makes Jimmy Butler so special for Steph Curry and for Steve Kerr. Because you don't have to spell for Steph Curry nearly as much as you thought you would or you had to do in the past, because this brother gives you a break because he allows you to get a breather so often. And by the way, if you don't want to take him out, what you can do is call Jimmy Butler's number, get to the free throw line. Steph needs a break, but we don't want to call a timeout. And this brother can do it with ease. This is part of what has made them so special right now and such a huge, huge threat in the Western Conference.
Absolutely. Guys, based on the simple fact of what you were just saying, Wendy, in terms of how they complement each other, and both Steph and Jimmy scoring 35-plus last night, I'll come to you on this, Mad Dog. Do you think this Warriors team can get to the Western Conference Final?
No, I do not. They're older. They're a two-pronged offensive team. I think they got the right matchup. Now, Houston's going to hear this, that the whole world thinks Golden State's going to win. I didn't look at the odds yet, but I bet if I'll have one of our guys do it.
Warriors are a minus 200 favorite.
Golden State is minus 200?
Yeah.
Wow, they're a huge favorite. Oh, my goodness. They were 200?
Yeah.
That's 2-1.
Yeah.
So if you put $100 on Golden State to beat Houston and you don't get it, you're going to lose $200. That is a huge favorite for a team that is a 7 seed without home court. And I think they beat Houston, but if you don't think Houston's going to pay attention to that, he's going to put that on the board. Hey, guys, they think so little of us. We're a 2-1 underdog in this series. That's going to play into this a little bit. And I think Golden State will get by this series, but I think it's going to be long. And I think eventually, Stevie, Winnie, they're going to get a little worn out. You know, got a bad thumb. He's 33, 34 years of age. Butler's no spring chicken. They're going to get worn out as this series and this postseason moves along. I think they'll beat the Rockets. Probably take 7 games. But I think at the end of the day, not enough firepower in my eyes, from what I've seen, to go out there and expect them to win, to get to a final in the West, 8 games.
Wendy, real quick, to piggyback on your point, it's the second time in 30 years that a 7 seed is favored over a 2.
Wow.
Yeah,
Even I'm surprised at that.
Let me just say this. In this particular Western Conference playoffs, other than what this 1-8 match will be, which is probably going to be Grizzlies and Thunder, the seeds don't matter. You know, they matter because Houston gets home court, but 2-7, 3-6, the separation between these teams is very narrow. So I appreciate you saying that, Molly. It's a good factoid. I don't think it's applicable. The Warriors are not a 7 seed. But one thing I am worried about, on Sunday, we saw Zubac with the Clippers get 17 rebounds. I think the Clippers had like 18 or 20 more rebounds than the Warriors. In this game last night, we see Zach Edey, 17 rebounds. They out-rebounded him again by 10 or 12. The Rockets can play huge. They have their own big giant guy in Steven Adams, and then Şengün, who's not humongous by NBA standards, but is a double-double machine. They're going to have issues with possession because they're going to play small. The other thing is, it's an advantage in the first round, guys, because there's all these extra days, but they're going to need more than Jimmy and Steph. And they didn't get much last night. Moses Moody had some moments. Quentin Post, their rookie big man, had some moments. They didn't get a lot of production elsewhere. And Steve Kerr has made an interesting decision. He's abandoned Jonathan Kuminga, who is arguably the best athlete on this roster, okay? The Rockets are stocked with athletes. And Molly, you're exactly right. Their game plan, Ime Udoka's game plan, is to make this a 6 or 7 game series. You're going to want to wear Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry out with these bigs. Kuminga last night, I wasn't there, so I don't know. I'm not sure he had his uniform on. I'm not kidding. I think he didn't have his uniform top on because he had clearly been told he wasn't going to play. And Curry's gone back and forth with Kuminga for 4 years. But they're going to need more than just these 2 guys to beat this Rockets team. I promise you that.
Yes, they will need more than these 2 guys. There is no question about that. The Warriors will. Because Ime Udoka can coach his butt off. You know how I feel about him as a coach. I think he's one of the elite coaches in the game of basketball. They clearly have a size and rebounding advantage, obviously. But come playoff time, especially when you're going up against the likes of a Steph Curry, you got to make shots. And can Houston do that when it really, really counts? I know Fred VanVleet is a champion. He could do that. I know that Dylan Brooks is a rough rider, and he's not scared of anything. And those are going to be factors. Jalen Green, we're going to see what you're going to do in a series like this. Amen Thompson, I love this young kid. I think he's a star in the making on both sides of the ball. He's just going to be special. I can see Houston winning a championship within the next couple of years. So that's how good I feel about this team. But in this particular series, here's what it comes down to for Golden State. Steph Curry, in 3 of the 5 games, played in 3 of the 5 games against Houston this year, averaged 16 points. 36% shooting, 30% from three-point range. Is that going to continue? I don't think so. All right. Jonathan Kuminga, Steve Kerr, you sure you want to stick with that decision? Jonathan Kuminga is Golden State's leading scorer against the Rockets this year. 21.3 points a game. You may need him because of his athleticism and his ability to have success against Houston. You just never know. And then when I think about Golden State, I also think about the fact that there are no back-to-backs come playoff time. They're going to be able to rest. So because of that and their experience, I think that's why they have the edge. And I don't think I think this will be a long series, but in the end, I think they will prevail. And I think that they have the potential to beat the Los Angeles Lakers, assuming the Lakers beat Minnesota. Certainly you're going to say the Lakers are the favorites. Golden State can take them because they can play some defense. Okay, they don't have the size, but they got a bunch of cats that can play some defense, and they have a few cats that are shot makers. They can beat the Lakers. So I just look at it from that standpoint. Yeah, they could get to the Western Conference Finals.
Cole Anthony came off the bench with 26 points and 6 assists to lead the Magic to a 120-95 win over the Atlanta Hawks. Orlando secures the 7th seed in a first-round matchup against the Celtics. Windy, biggest takeaway from this one last night?
Well, you said, Molly, about Cole Anthony. The Magic are the number 2 defensive team in the league, and they're the number 27 offensive team. When you put that together, what do you get? You get an average team. They were 41-41. So when they get a role player like Cole Anthony, and by the way, he does this 7 or 8, 10 times a year where he just gets red hot off their bench. It makes such a huge difference because their offense struggles so much. Their starters were terrible last night offensively. They were 3 of 22 on threes. Banchero and Franz Wagner didn't shoot the ball well. So that's huge. And if they can get something like this in a game against the Celtics, maybe. But the takeaway from this one, though, was Trae Young getting ejected in the 4th quarter of this game. A frustration technical. He got 2 technicals back-to-back, threw the ball at the official here, and then tried to keep the ball away, got ejected in this game. The game was already over. It's a 22-point game at this point. Probably going to get fined for this. Trae Young is one of the best play-in players as ever. I would always take Trae Young in a one-game setting. This was not his best showing.
It was not his best showing, but he'll make up for it the next game.
He might.
Trust me. He ain't going to be no Mike. He's going to put on a show when they show up to Atlanta this Friday night. By the way, the MVP of this game wasn't Cole Anthony. It was his daddy. Greg Anthony, our former colleague at ESPN and now on NBA TV and stuff like that. Because what he does, he takes his son out to dinner in Atlanta Saturday night, and he says, you might not really fit in the rotation this particular game. You might not get some playing time. So he really inspired the son and all that stuff. Probably egged him on and all of that stuff. My man Greg Anthony, that's the MVP of last night because he got his son rolling. That's what that's about.
Wanna try to post at what I look like. Think I'm gonna try to wear